Hey there, everyone. This is author Anthony Avina, and I have released another novel. Bam! Yeah, I'm messing around with the webcam again. But I just wanted to do a reading from my novel. It's called Dormant. It's part of a series called A Monstrous Genetics novel. Um, it's about a writer who, begins having these horrific nightmares where he's a monster. He has to figure out what these dreams mean. Are they real? Or are they just part of his imagination? Is his mind having a breakdown? And he ends up uncovering a pretty nasty plot. So I'll get started. First, I just want to give a quick shout out for who this dedication is for in this novel, and it's for my grandfather, Jesus Morales. He passed away last Christmas Eve, and he was one of the very few people who encouraged me to do what I love, to be a writer, to pursue everything that I believe in, and it means the world to me that he was there for me. So I miss him with all my heart, and I love him, and I know I'll see him again someday. And with that, here is the first chapter of Dormant, a Monstrous Genetics novel. Chapter 1. The dream began with a scream. When sleep took over Logan Hurst, he found himself waking up in a dream world. The first thing he heard was the piercing scream of a young woman. Looking around, Logan saw that he was in a heavily wooded area. Having been born and raised in Southern California, Logan had never really had the opportunity to explore the woods before. However, somehow in his mind, Logan knew this was the rustic canyon in Los Angeles. Surrounded by oak, eucalyptus, and sycamore trees, Logan began to run towards the screaming voice, hoping to find the source and help if he could. However, like most dreams, he couldn't run fast enough, as if the woods ahead of him were extending further and further away from him. The sun seemed to be setting quickly the further he ran, and a deep-seated fear crept over him, as if a great evil was waiting for him up ahead. Suddenly, the woods ahead of him rushed into view, and he found himself standing in a circle surrounded by trees and torches. Night had fallen quickly, and as he turned in the circle, he saw a young woman tied to a tree in the center of the circle. She was young, with long blonde hair and light blue eyes, and she had the figure of an aspiring model that was starving herself to fit into the required group of actresses in Hollywood. She was bound to the tree with chains, and the clothes she wore were torn in places and bloody from cuts on her body. She was crying, and her eyes widened in horror as a shadowy figure walked in front of her. She screamed louder, but Logan seemed unable to move, as if he were frozen into place. Logan tried to cry out to her, and tried to run to her aid, but he was helpless, and he watched in horror as the figure brought out a scalpel and cut the woman's throat. Blood sprayed everywhere, and as the dying woman choked on her last scream, Logan watched horrified as the figure turned. He tried to scream, but no sound would come out. It wasn't a supernatural creature standing in front of him that scared him. When the figure turned towards him, Logan saw that it was his own face he saw, and he was holding the knife. Looking upon his own face, he saw that he was wearing a wicked grin, and as he turned away in horror, he saw that he was now holding the bloody knife, and the figure was gone. Looking at the bloody knife in his hand, Logan screamed, horrified at the thought of his crime, and his mind reeled as he screamed, "No! No! No! No!" Logan screamed, sitting up quickly in bed and gasping for breath. He looked around wild-eyed, fear creeping into his bones as the horrors of that nightmare refused to leave his mind. He looked down at his hands nervously, half expecting to see a blood-stained knife in his grasp. Next to him, his wife Lois opened her eyes quickly and grabbed onto her husband. Logan, baby, it's okay. It was just a bad dream, Lois whispered, as she wrapped her arms around the trembling man and tried to soothe him. He looked at her as he breathed deeply, and as he collapsed into her arms, the memory of the dream etched itself onto his mind. Are you okay? She asked, looking down at the top of his head as he rested on her chest. I am now that I'm awake, he replied. What were you dreaming about? I don't remember, Logan lied, not wanting to tell his wife that he had dreamt he murdered a woman. It wasn't that he feared her judging himself too harshly, but rather he feared his dream was a precursor of things to come. Hours later, as the morning slowly crept towards the afternoon, Logan and Lois Hurst made their way into the large living room of their four-bedroom apartment in the city of Los Angeles. The sun shone through the narrow Venetian slats that covered their windows, and Logan watched as a flock of pigeons flew across the morning skyline from the window of their second-story apartment. Walking into the living room, Logan turned on the large LCD TV and flipped it onto the morning news, brushing a lock of his medium-length, curly black hair from his face. Ever the California-born guy, Logan sported the tan complexion of a surfer and the easygoing nature to boot. Standing at about 6'4" and sporting a medium build, the rider seemed to glide like an athlete across the marble-tiled floor, although he had never been into sports nor even ever played one. Looking into the kitchen, Logan saw Lois standing at the sink, getting a pot of coffee ready as they prepared for their morning ritual. The outbursts in the middle of the night hadn't ruined their sleep any, and as he looked upon his beautiful wife, he marveled at how lucky he was to be with her. Standing at 5'8" and sporting a healthy figure with curves to match, the raven-haired, olive-toned complexion of an Amazonian and the emerald eyes of a South American gem, she was like a goddess, having descended from the heavens and granting humanity the gift of her beauty. They had just recently gotten married. They couldn't have been happier if they tried. After a lovely ceremony in Santa Monica, they had honeymooned to Paris and had only returned in the last few weeks. As Logan had sat there in bed after the nightmare, he had wondered if he had caught a bug whilst in France, and in his mind he felt as if fate were catching up to him, as if he hadn't earned this amazing wife and amazing life he had built with her, and so karma was getting ready to take that all away from him. You want some eggs and toast? She called out as she finished making the coffee and looked out at her husband. That sounds great, but if you'd like some help I can, Logan began to say, but before he could finish, the news report caught his eye, and Logan found the breath knocked right out of him. A young Asian woman was reporting on a report of a recent murder spree where the body of another young woman was found in the financial district of Los Angeles. The woman was identified as a Miss Erica Lance, and as they showed her picture, Logan was horrified to see that Erica Lance was the same woman from his nightmare the previous night. Logan, what's wrong, babe? Lois asked as she walked over to him, her light blue shorts and white tank top hugging her body as she slid into the seat next to Logan. I don't believe this, but I think I dreamt about her last night. Ravencroft watched as his latest work was discovered for the entire world to see. A sense of pride overtook him as he moved among the crowd that had gathered outside the crime scene. He reveled in the effect his art was having on the crowd as he watched their horrified faces and listened to their gasps and sobs. Ravencroft thought about the breakthrough he had months ago, when he had made his first kill and created his first work of art. He had been walking in the woods in Rustic Canyon when he had come across a campground where a beautiful young woman had been starting a fire as night approached. As he watched her work, the memory of his ex-wife had popped into his mind. Every insult she had ever hurled at him and every physical blow she had landed on him when he had been the weakling little Anton Holbrook flashed across his vision. And the anger that he had felt as he had beaten his wife to death came flooding back. So when that anger had risen inside of him, Ravencroft had taken that as a sign from above, showing him to his true calling. He had been working on his taxidermy in the woods, and so had been carrying around his tools, including a bone saw. He had taken the bone saw out of his toolkit, approached the woman from behind, and had taken his prize. The first cut had released the beast dwelling within him, and since his first kill, he had perfected his craft. Now, 5 kills later and already planning his 6th, the latest serial killer to Los Angeles watched the police examine the fresh corpse standing in the middle of a water fountain outside of an investment firm. He took pride in his ability to not be crude, and he looked on as the latest victim was photographed in the pose he left her in. She was wearing a flower print dress, and her skin was glassy milk white after days of work he had spent on her. She was as stiff as a board after he had finished with her, and the coroner was having a hard time moving her around. He wanted to laugh at that, but he refused to give himself away. He had much more work to accomplish, and he was not going to give it up easily. However, this kill did not give him the same satisfaction that he had gotten from the others. He didn't understand fully why that was, but as he relived the kill and the memories of the last few days now, he realized that there was one event that had troubled him. He had been performing the ceremony in the woods, getting ready for the kill, when a terrible headache had overcome him. This headache had nearly driven him to his knees, but there was more to the headache. When he had set up, ready to finish the kill, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. And I think that's where I'll leave it. I don't want to go quite as long as the last reading was. But yeah, that was my excerpt from Dormant, a Monsters Genetics novel. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I am hard at work on a new Nightmare Wars book, the 3rd one in the really long series I have planned out. Also, The Legend of Electric Fusion is still out on shelves on Amazon Kindle. I'm also planning a new show with On Request Magazine, a weekly show. Hopefully we'll get that started in the next few weeks. And I'm going to be trying to do video game videos also next week. I actually tried doing one yesterday, but stupid me that I am, the video didn't record on this webcam, so gotta try that again next week. I'll have links in the description below for all my social networking stuff and the podcast where you can find this video's audio for iTunes or Podomatic. Also, our recent E3 coverage for On Request Magazine. You can watch videos of our interviews with NASA coming up soon. I'll leave a link in the description below. Question of the day. Let's see. What is the scariest, most realistic dream you've ever had? We all have nightmares. You know, if anyone can remember this, there was a movie called The Trilogy of Terror. And there's this creepy little doll in the film called a Zuni doll. Came to life, started killing people, ran on these tiny little feet, and you knew it was coming anytime you heard the soft little pitter-patter of its feet across the wood floor. It was really creepy and just scared me when I was a kid. What are your guys' nightmares? Do you still have them? What is your worst fear? And how do you overcome those fears when you wake up from the nightmare? Leave your answers below. Video responses and written responses are cool with me. And I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for listening. This is author Anthony Avina signing out.